a commercial for MarcomCentral by any means. Our goal today is a knowledge share and to have all the attendees come away with some solid takeaways if you're interested in or experiencing some of the similar problems that you'll hear today that Cox Business was experiencing. We want to offer some solid takeaways on implementing a one-stop shop for sales. So a little bit about MarcomCentral. We've been around for a long time. We were established in 1999, and we offer a software as a service platform. And it's used by over 400 enterprise clients, ranging from large companies like Cox Business to small to medium-sized businesses. We support over 1 million end users of the platform accessing content every day. And Beth, if you want to change the slide. Our goal is to help companies that are faced with the challenge of maintaining brand identity and regulatory compliance across multiple sales users and channels, business units, and multiple locations either internationally or within the country, and allowing customization of content to local markets. And Beth, if you want to go ahead and switch. Our goal is to help companies centralize marketing material, and it could be all kinds of different assets, and then allow those sales channels to customize messaging within certain limits through templating technology. So today we're going to hear from Beth Nix, Sales Enablement Manager at Cox Business. She's going to share with us some of the experiences she had, the problems they were facing, what they wanted to solve, and then the steps she took to find a solution and implement that solution. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Beth.
Thanks, Jeff, and thank you all for letting me spend the time with you to tell you a little bit about how we developed the Destination Resource Center that we call our one-stop shop for all of our sales organizations and many other organizations as we continue to grow. But before I do that, I want to let you know a little bit about our business, because we're Cox Business and we're a part of the Cox family. In 1898, James Cox bought his first newspaper. And then a little known trivia fact is in 1920, he served as the governor of Ohio for 3 terms. He ran as the Democratic nominee for president with FDR as his running mate. But today we're a privately held communications company. It involves media, auto services, more than $17 billion in revenue annually, and more than 50,000 employees. And many of you may not know that, but a third of all Americans actually touch or encounter our Cox brand every day. You may be listening to the radio, watching TV, or reading a newspaper. You may be buying a car at auction or buying or selling on Auto Trader. Or maybe you're in a hotel or a business waiting room and you're watching TV. Or maybe you're just accessing a Wi-Fi hotspot in local business. Any of these can be touches to the Cox brand. So what you want to do as far as adopting a new platform is, obviously you might have an existing platform that you're trying to replace. And so that was our case. And so we were looking at cumbersome navigation. Our old platform had limited capabilities as far as how we're going to support our users and external customers. We had escalating costs, and we were getting minimal improvements and functionality out of that. And in order to meet our future needs, our requirements was going to take extensive developmental costs, and we still couldn't actually meet all of our needs. We had limited reporting capabilities, so we really couldn't get any insight to the use of our portal and how it was being used appropriately. And then our day-to-day process at the working level was very cumbersome. We didn't have as much control and just wasn't very efficient. So with that, we went shopping with our laundry list of things that we wanted to make sure that we had in a portal, and we were able to come up with our vendor, this MarcomCentral, who could meet those needs. And so things we were looking for was an improved user experience. We wanted a more intuitive platform, more responsive. We wanted the ability to be able to add resources to our portal and remove the vendor from the process, as I mentioned, for improved efficiency. We want them to be there for support, but we also wanted to have the ability to do things on our own, and so that it didn't have to be, depending on their involvement, we could work together on that. We needed flexibility in the way we partitioned it and the things that we would access on it. So we might have different kinds of customers that we want to partition the content based on that. Or we also might have different areas that we want to support, like events and forums and things like that. So we need a lot of flexibility in how we designed it. As far as reporting capabilities, we wanted that to be extensive and give us the ability to build nice charts and graphics that we could share and show how the utilization is. We wanted more robust search criteria. So think if you're surfing the internet and you have all kinds of search capabilities there, but why would you roll out a platform to your users that doesn't have that same capability that they've come to know when they're searching other sites or when they're shopping on the internet, things like that. We want the ability to keep our documentation fresh so we could do some document expirations and alert us when we need to review it. So we have that capability as well. And we wanted the ability, again, to add users without having to engage our vendor. So again, that's that whole thing of not having to involve them all the time, but having them there to support us if we need them. And then this was more of a partnership with a desktop icon for single sign-on. So while our vendor supports single sign-on, our IT department was there to deploy a desktop icon where the user doesn't have to have a bookmark a login URL, and then they don't have to remember their login and their password and things like that. So those were things that we wanted to be able to support, and they were able to partner with our IT department and deliver that. So the next thing you want to do after you selected your vendor is, well, what are the top things to consider whenever I'm planning? One is your boundary partners. You need their input and their buy-in from the groups that are going to be using the tool to ensure that that it's going to meet their needs. Do you have a centralized or decentralized organization? And how does this impact the design when needing to support diverse markets and users? Does this impact getting approval on the design? What makes sense to one market may not make sense to another. So you need to strike a balance because you can't please everyone. Some sections of your portal may be more centralized, but you have an area that has more local content that supports the decentralized model. So just make sure you keep this in mind with the navigation and make sure that it's intuitive. Then you need to identify the components you need to support the design. Is it only for documents? Do you need to support other types of collateral that require access to professional quality print files? If so, how will you represent them and provide access to these files? Do you want to support hosting videos, booklets and manuals, guides, etc.? What types of capabilities do you want to provide? Do you want to be able to email from the platform, download from the platform, both? Do you want to provide forums to provide areas for your users with communities of interest to interact? Do you need a calendar functionality, and how do you want to use it? Do you need multiple calendars to support the decentralized groups? And if so, does this require another provider to be connected by an API? The calendar function was key for us because not only could sales access details about meetings and events that the company is sponsoring, but sales leadership could use it when planning trips to markets and maximize how their time is spent in the market by attending a few events or meetings, as well as meeting with our sales organizations and customers. And what functionality do you need? Will your IT department support a hard-coded icon, as I mentioned, or will users access via a URL, login, and password? Do you have the need for both types of access? What types of users do you have? Do you have some that will need a login and password because they can't have an icon delivered to their desktop? This can drive how many types of groups you need to establish to gate off your content. And then you need to identify the resources you will need and how you will need them for ongoing support after they launch. Establish reasonable goals. Are you moving from an existing portal where you need to update and clean house with your existing documents? Don't just pay money to move stale content onto a new platform. Spend the time to clean it up before moving it. And who's going to upload the documents post-launch? Who will take care of reporting? Do you have to support the troubleshooting for the users or man a portal mailbox? Who will continue to groom the site to ensure assets stay in an orderly fashion on the site and are easy to find? Who can handle adding new folders, designs, functionality? These are all things you need to take into consideration. And work with your partners to create a launch and communication plan. Awareness and ease of use are keys to adoption of your new portal. Your long-term strategy for evolution and growth. Have you identified some components that you want that are just too much to roll out all at once with the portal launch? How will you handle adding these? Have you designed the platform so that the sections are easily expanded and the user experience is still intuitive without having a major redesign? So you need to take that into consideration when you're planning. But with all that, you also have some things you need to watch out for and avoid. So break up the project into manageable phases. Don't try to develop something so complex for the initial launch that it makes the whole plan fall apart. Be reasonable. Do you have a deadline to move off the old platform? First impressions are everything to your users, so make sure that what you roll out is top quality. Taking on more than is feasible can result in making a bad impression the first time around. And make sure the portal is intuitive, strictly important as you begin to add more sections to your portal after the launch. If the base design is good, it will be easier to add sections and still be intuitive to the user for navigation. And then think about IE 11 versus your Chrome. Which browser does your IT support? Do they allow the user to select their default browser? There are functionality impacts based on the browser used, so this is something to consider. And then as far as reporting, deciding that you know how you want your portal to be used changes. So be flexible. The things you might want to know the first 6 months don't often apply for the long run. Keep evaluating what is important. You may find that during the first 6 months you want to know how many users you're adding. Then you need to drill down further after 6 months to see how often they're accessing the portal. What are the reports really telling you that are useful insights? So be prepared to change them if you're not getting what you need from your reporting. And now you're ready to launch. So you've done all this work to create a tool, so now you want them to use it. But if they're not aware of it, they can't use it. So develop a launch plan and communications plan around the launch. Send out an email announcement and create a separate email communication for leadership so they can drive awareness top down. And provide a video tutorial on your site for users who forget how to do something or could make it to the launch meeting. You'll be able to add users along the way, and so therefore as you add those users along the way, they'll also want to access it because they won't be at the launch meeting, so they'll need to figure out how to navigate the portal, or if it's they can always refer to that. And then you want to establish a help mailbox. It gives users a lifeline for help when they need it, and include a list of their local contacts so they can reach out to them for help as well. And then host webinars to train the users by taking them through the site and showing them the content, navigation tricks, etc. This will allow them the time to ask questions and experiment with the platform real time. And you can create like a poster there, and we see on the site there, so you can have posters that you put on all your markets and locations to drive people to it as well and create awareness. And then after the launch, you want to continue to drive awareness by sending out a newsletter listing all the new and updated assets and changes and things that you created. And you can send that out every month. You can provide breadcrumbs for finding the pieces and hyperlink them to the newsletter as well. You can put little ticklers in there as far as little nuggets, what are the latest things you want to drive, give them user tips and things like that, all kinds of things like that you can add to your newsletter. And then finally, you develop a standard monthly report so you can gauge how your portal is being used and share them with leadership and key supporters in your market to drive the right behavior in using your portal as a one-stop shop. Any questions?
Thanks, Beth. Yes, we got a couple of questions here. I do want to let everybody know that's on the line that this is all lines are muted. So if you have questions, you can post them on the GoToMeeting panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll go through those. But I got a couple here. The first being, did you run into any unexpected hurdles with your implementation, and if so, what were they?
Well, as far as hurdles, sometimes it's more like timing. Yeah, we were having to work within the, whenever you're rolling something out and you have, you're in a sales organization, you have to watch out for the end of the month, and then you have to be up against the end of the quarter. So we had to look at that as far as rollout. We also had to look at, we were running into the end of the year when we were launching ours. So those were issues as far as gaining their mind share to introduce a new tool for them, but also while they're trying to, you want to be respectful of them as far as their time while they're trying to close out sales in the year for a strong sales year. Also run into sometimes issues with our particular icon that we rolled out with IT, because when you're rolling out something, you have all kinds of issues going on different PCs, and so there was a little bit of a glitch there as far as would it automatically load on their PCs, and when it didn't automatically load, how did you force it to load, much like software upgrades are forced to load on a network. So we had to overcome a few little glitches like that. And then as far as our planning glitches, that was just more of, we would have to continue to shore up our schedule whenever some things might take longer than others. Then we would continue to regroup with MarcomCentral to make sure that our milestones were met and we were still going to be able to stay on target for our launch. So even when, whether it was which side it was on would go off track, we were able to get back on track, and we met our deadlines. So that was great that they had the resources to support us and do that.
Yeah, and this is Lisa Maggi. I would add on to that in the spirit of clear disclosure. You're always going to have a few planning and timeline issues that you have to make sure you have a plan B for. But what really takes a tremendous amount of time and caused us to have to step back a couple of times is we're still a somewhat decentralized organization. And so many of our field marketing peers, we had to convince them, right, this was a good thing, which was long before we chose a vendor partner, right? This is something that we had to do. And by developing this platform, all bets were off when it came to, oh, we'll do this in the field and they won't know, right? The all-important headquarters. So there were a lot of times when it would take quite a bit to make sure that everyone opened up and was very clear and open about what materials they had that they wanted loaded into this platform. And so in our platform, it was important to have not only the global documents, but also individual folders for each of the markets to make sure they could have what they needed that was specific to their market and that they felt they were part of the process. So it did take a little longer, I think, than we initially thought it would to get them on board and have some trust that they were still going to have some responsibility, and they were still going to have some opportunity to have what's specific to their market without it being a headquarters is doing this, so we don't need you guys anymore, right? So you always have to be on the lookout for that if you have any sort of field marketing as well.
That's a good point, Lisa, because in order to get their buy-in and adoption, we made it very easy for them to get collateral to us and things like that. We were easy to do business with as far as engaging them. So instead of creating some convoluted, really difficult process for them to have to follow in order to participate in the portal, we made it very easy for them.
Great. And on adoption, I've got a question related to that, and then a few questions on migrating from another system. But I'll start with the question regarding adoption. Do you have any guidance around what to expect in terms of 1% of adoption in the first couple of months after launching?
Well, for us, it was a slow ramp up just because of the time of year. So again, we were launching like November 1st, and so it was end of year and all that. So we were able to also take advantage of our sales kickoff in the January timeframe for really driving additional awareness, and that's when people really got on the platform. So as far as driving adoption, again, key is continuing to look at those reports, and first you want to look at how many users you're finding that are jumping on, but then you start looking at, and then you're also looking at the behavior, especially if you're looking at the types of assets they're using. So we want to make sure the types of assets, whether they're using product collateral or presentations, things like that, to see what's the most useful types of collateral. And then the other thing is, what products are they promoting? You're seeing your reporting come out like that. So that's key to see. Are they using the types things? Are those things lining up with the kind of sales that you're seeing out there, or is there some kind of a disconnect? Are they not using your collateral that supports the key solutions that they should be selling? We found that they were using it that way. So that was good news. But the other thing is, we could also drill down further to see, well, how often are the same users coming back? And what we found is a few users that are just spot on using it all the time, and were able to come back and tell us almost like a case study saying how wonderful this has been as far as increasing their sales by 200%, and this is how they use the portal, and how they use the different assets, and how they email customers from the portal, and how they contact them using their first contact, and what did they do on their second contact, and how the use of the portal is driving their whole sales process. So, and then we can take that information and share it with other salespeople to help them as far as improving their sales if they're struggling at all. And then also we're now that we've been deployed for almost 9 months, now we're looking at creating these forums where we can go in and get some feedback from a handful of users. We're looking at our high to medium users and what we call our low to no users, and finding out, from the high to mediums, what all do you find is really great and wonderful, and what would you like to see changed? And then from the low to no, why aren't you using it? What are your obstacles and things like that? And then we're also looking at other categories of users, so not just your sales organization, but maybe your product managers, and we're looking at a subset of our sales organization as our new hires that go through training, and contacting them 3 to 6 months down the road and say, okay, now you've been to training and you're getting your feet wet and you're getting good at sales. How are you using the portal? So we're looking at that as well. So a lot of different factors as far as measuring adoption and driving adoption.
Excellent. And just piggybacking on that, how many users are accessing the system now? Do you have any rough estimates on that?
We have about 1,000.
And then going to migrating from a different platform, did you migrate from a similar platform to Marcom? And there's a second part to that question. If it's someone on the line, for them it's going to be a new technology. So do you have any advice for a company that has to introduce a platform like this?
We were supposed to be coming from a similar platform, but again, it never could meet the needs without a lot of development. So the purpose of that platform was supposed to be like what we have with our new platform, but also this one does so much more. So as far as deploying that to the users, that was a little bit, it was part of the whole communication plan, because it was important to let them know, yes, it replaces it, but it does so much more. It was also kind of overcoming some hurdles because they didn't like the old platform so much that they had walked away and weren't using it, and were doing whatever they could to just get by. And so the hurdle was also to to introduce this to them and get their buy-in to say, I promise you this time it's better, and you're going to really like this. Please go in and give it a chance. But we were also giving them so many more things as far as capability, as I mentioned, like a calendar so that they can see what's going on in their different markets, and they can use it for not only seeing at a national level what we're doing, but also in their local markets what they're doing as far as sponsoring meetings and events. And also we got a lot of adoption for them loading their local calendars, and we actually do that for them. And then as far as trying something new with sales forums, where we have a director that's over our education sales forum, and so all those people who sell in the education industry can get on there and share, what's going on around the country and sales successes and how they want to, their game plan for sales to that particular segment. And we do that for government and education. We have different verticals we do that for. We also, but we did not deploy with one thing, which is called a proposal builder, a standard proposal builder, because that one was more complex for us to develop. So that's the cool thing about it is, okay, we deployed with all this functionality, but now we have something else that we're bringing out, and so that's creating a lot of excitement around usage. And oh my goodness, now we're going to get some additional functionality. I will also say that newsletter that we use, like I said, not only does it bring their awareness to updated pieces and new pieces, and but we, like I said, we communicate additional functionality and changes that we're making to the portal. So that kind of gets some, and we get feedback from sales, so we can incorporate different feedback and make improvements that way. So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, and this is Lisa again. If I could add one more thing. I took over sales enablement for Cox before Beth had joined the team. When Beth joined, this was one of her initial projects on my team. And the previous portal, to Beth's point, she was being extremely kind. When I took that over from the person who had it before, it really had minimal function. And so, because to Beth's point, it was not well received. When we launched the new portal, and this would be, words of wisdom, if you have a portal that's not as robust or not doing as well or used as much by your sales folks, recommend a totally different name, different launch. Try to separate the two as much as you can. But if you have a separate portal or platform now and you're going to move to a totally new one, make sure that you also go into the old one, as you're making the cutover, whether it be 6, 9 months, however, and make sure you get those previous analytics and reports on number of users, et cetera, as best you can, so that you have a comparison, because once you shut that down, you won't be able to go back and get it.
That's great advice, Lisa. And that also, that was a question on how long it took you to sunset. So I believe your answer there was between 6 and 9 months to sunset the previous platform. Is that right?
I think it took about 6, 8 months, didn't it, Beth?
Yeah, but because we made the decision, but at one point in time when we started doing the planning, then we had a pretty good idea of when we wanted to sunset it. So it was 6 months, and then from that, and MarcomCentral knew that we have to be off of it. We have no place else to go. So they knew what the deadline was, and we all just worked towards that.
And then I've got a question here. This is, does this also function as a learning management system, an LMS, training on usage and guidelines for content and Marcom assets?
Not so much. We do put a lot of different assets on here. We kind of separated. We have pre-sale, which is more of your product collateral, presentations, booklets, brochures, things like that. Then we have a separate section we consider more post-sale, and post-sale is, like I said, manuals, quick reference guides, anything that the customer might need for referencing how to use their solutions post-sale. We also have an area that we're going into, which is more of sales operations post-sale. So that would be, okay, the salesperson has closed the sale. Now where do I get all my methods and procedures and things like that for implementation? So that's more for the operations people who are placing the orders and implementing, so there are a lot of guides in there. There's also service level agreements and things that they need to be able to provide to their customers, sometimes pre-sale, sometimes post-sale, so that's in there. And then, but we are open to, we can put training information on there, and we've been approached by the training organization, so absolutely you can put a section in there for your training for your salespeople to be able to access, and we're just starting to look at some of that and engage with our training organization to see what makes sense. What we have is what we call our sales enrichment section, and it's really more about how to make yourself a better salesperson after you've gone through training and all that. So we put little nuggets on there as far as enrichment and all.
But they are, some of the sales teams, there are certain pieces that they are able to customize and personalize with their information. I don't know if that was part of the question as well, but I thought I heard something about the Marcom. So we can allow our sales teams to personalize. We even have one market that uploaded all their sales reps' pictures because they like to have pictures on some things. So yeah, we do allow some level of customization.
And one thing I also wanted to add is that as far as training, what we created is called job aids. And so a person's been through training and they, all that, but sometimes then they just kind of forget about a certain product, and then a customer, wants that solution. And so we've created job aids that are pretty much kind of like recapping everything you need to know about this product before you go out to a sales call, and then so they can pull that job aid down. So we keep it all in the area where we have our product collateral. And then, so then they can review that, and then they go in and they pull their collateral and their customer-facing presentation, and they're ready to go out the door. So as far as like a learning management system, we don't use it exactly like that, but we do give them the kind of tools they need as far as continuing education.
And I've got a question here too, just listening to this. In your implementation, were there assets that you have posted, are there assets that you have posted now that you did not have in your initial plan, and if so, what are they?
Well, I don't know. We continue to evolve. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I was going to say the one thing that we are able to do with this platform that we could not do previously, right? We do a tremendous amount of enterprise level sales, whether it be vertical. And, many of you are in similar industries that take, have a considerable sales cycle, 9 to 18 months sometimes. Whereas, right, in small biz, it's more transactional. So what we were able to do is, as we develop content throughout the year, whether it be for a media program, whether it be a case study of one of our customers, by being able to house them in a single location and be able to email from that location, we have started to pilot a trial with one of our markets to teach the sales reps about the customer journey and what types of content or assets to put in front of a customer at a different stage in the sales cycle. So they can go in and say, okay, I've got a customer, I haven't heard from him in a few weeks, I don't want him to forget about me. Okay, this is about the time he's probably still doing research, so let me send him this white paper. They can go in, find it, send it directly from there. Okay, he's putting the sales cycle where, he should be looking to kind of validate his decision. Let me send him a testimonial, and you can send it straight from there. We didn't have that functionality before, and we've seen a lot of use of that.
Right. And you mentioned pilot, which also came up here. Did you pilot this, and what were your learnings from the pilot? Did you pilot MarcomCentral prior to launch, and what were the key learnings from it?
No, we didn't. We did not pilot it before the launch.
Oh.
We just
and the main reason
jump right in.
Yeah. Just from prior to Beth coming on the team, and she's done a tremendous amount with this platform, more than I really would ever have thought. But from our history, we knew enough about what we didn't want, and having gone through that experience, that we, in working with our supply chain group, we knew exactly what we wanted. And so when we found it, we knew, right? It wasn't like we hadn't had a platform before, and it was like, well, I'm not sure if we'll use this. I'm not sure if salespeople are going to need this. We had been through that experience, and so we had a very definitive list of must-haves and nice-to-haves. So that was part of the reason we didn't pilot it, whereas years ago there was piloting being done.
And sometimes that can be difficult also when you have so many cooks in the kitchen. You can spend a lot of time developing something, and you can never make everybody happy. So like Lisa said, we knew enough about what was important, and then we tried to build it with as much flexibility as possible to add on what we thought were going to be the future needs.
And then you mentioned the desktop icon. Does MarcomCentral support single sign-on, and did you use that to accomplish the access point for users?
Yes. So we actually did a customized SAML creation, and so that was something we worked with Marcom's IT department and engineering department to develop. And it was key to us. We didn't want just simple single sign-on. We wanted this hard-coded icon, and our IT department was able to support that. We still had a lot of testing and everything to do back and forth, like you have to do with SAML production. But in the long run, that was key to us, because the users, a lot of times their laptops will crash, whatever, need to be re-imaged, things like that. For whatever reason, they lose all their bookmarks, and then they never can remember their passwords and all that. So we just didn't want that to be an obstacle to using it. We want it to be very easy. And this way, with IT pushing this icon to their desktop, it's just there. And if they have their computer crashes, it has to be re-imaged, well then guess what? It's sent back to the desktop just like any other software that's supposed to be on that PC, because the IT department knows it's supposed to be there. And all they have to do is click on it. They don't have to remember a login or password. They're just in. So it just really makes, as far as a user experience, it makes it very clean and easy.
Great. And of the materials, do you utilize back-end fulfillment for any of the marketing materials?
No, we did not adopt those because we just didn't need them at this time. We do, there's a lot of capabilities on the platform that we did not take advantage of in the beginning, just because we didn't have a need for it. But there's other things that Marcom has come out with that we wanted to take advantage of. Different kinds of search capabilities. So we've taken advantage of that, and then there's different kind of functionality as far as other kind of reporting capabilities. So, matter of fact, and I will say this is really a great thing, is we needed additional reporting capabilities, and we were able to introduce, something that they were able to find that other customers could use, and so therefore they created it as a standalone deployment, and it wasn't something that we had to pay for additional creative. So, very good as far as listening to their users and determining what are some useful enhancements that you guys want to roll out, and so that was helpful. That's been very valuable to us in the long run.
Great. And there are some additional questions that we will get to Beth and Lisa, get answers for the group. I do want to thank you both, Beth and Lisa. You've been extremely helpful. We look forward to seeing you at the annual user group and continuing to hear your feedback and sharing your experiences. We will provide this presentation. It will be provided. We are also recording this webinar, and it will be available to access from our website as well. So at this time, I'd like to thank you both, and if there are any additional questions, please post those. We will answer those offline. And to everybody on the line, have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.